Morning, all. Well, Robert, here we are in sunny California, the #6 economy in the world. And yet, if we look around, and it's been raised earlier, the equity issue is key. It is the highest impoverished area in the nation if you consider housing cost. So, how can PG&E provide affordable and clean energy, especially to low incomes who are the hardest hit?
Are we turned on?
Am I
There we go.
better? Okay, thank you. So the question is, how can PG&E provide affordable and clean energy, especially for the low income that are not included in paying for services they're not using all the time, and the hardest hit when it comes to cost of consumption of energy?
Ortensia, thank you for the question, and good morning to everybody. Let me thank you for being here and participating, and I will answer your question. I also want to thank the Atlantic for hosting this. I mean, access to power, ensuring equity in energy is an extraordinarily important issue, and particularly given the dynamic changes that we're seeing in the energy landscape. As we've heard all the panelists this morning, we are living in a time of dynamic change in the energy sector, driven by technological advancement, driven by customer expectations around customer choice, and driven by public policy mandates. And so we recognize at PG&E that it's very important that all segments of our community are able to participate in the energy revolution, or the new clean and green energy economy. And it's something that we take very, very seriously. And we've got plenty of examples. But to answer your question, it's very, very important that we enter into community partnerships and co-create public policies. And I'll give you an example. I came from Missouri, as you know. I just was new to the state of California about a year ago, where I was chairman of our state Public Utilities Commission. And what I observed in 20 plus years of policy development and implementation is that the best public policy outcomes are those that are achieved through partnership, those that are achieved by bringing together a broad range of stakeholders that may or may not always agree together to co-create policy. So it's very important to PG&E, and it's something that we've done by working with Greenlining Institute, by working with California Black Chamber of Commerce, and with other civic institutions to co-create policy and to work together. So the first step is to do that, is to bring together diverse groups of stakeholders to make sure that we listen, hear, and understand the various perspectives, and to make sure that we're co-creating policies that will ensure the broadest distribution of the benefits that are going to be achieved by the clean and green economy.
Thank you, Robert. But speaking to that, you jumped ahead to the partnership question. Tell me, how do you protect or ensure that there's representation, empowerment, and awareness in low-income communities as a dynamic of the partnerships you're forming? Because a lot of times what I have found being in the nonprofit sector over 40 years is that you get shotgun weddings. And, like you're forced to work together or live together. And it doesn't always work. And certainly the vulnerable is the one that ends up not benefiting, their community's constituents not benefiting.
I think the answer to your question is it's multifold, but let me just touch on two aspects. It's got to be, first of all, deliberate effort by companies. And I'm proud to work at PG&E because we do make deliberate effort to work with all segments of our communities. I mean, I think we take very seriously the notion that we are a public utility. We provide an essential service. We're very supportive of California's ambitious climate policies, and we've got plenty of examples to demonstrate how we have supported California's ambitious climate goals. We have connected and interconnected more private solar installations than any other utility in the state and in fact in the country. So we have a very demonstrated commitment to supporting California's climate policies and climate goals. We also have, I think, demonstrated a deliberate effort and commitment to work with the communities that we serve. And so that's the first aspect. The companies, private industry, has to appreciate that it has to make deliberate effort to work with all of the communities that it serves. And I think as a public utility, we take that obligation especially seriously by virtue of the fact that we're providing this essential service. And so that's number one. But we also have to make sure that there are proper policies in place that are equitably distributing the benefits of our clean and green energy economy. So it starts with deliberate effort, but on the other hand, it also requires intentional government effort as well, and public policies that are going to support that.
And so could you share a couple of examples of what partnerships would help you with that?
I'll give you one example that's really recent, particularly interesting as a part of this dialogue. As people have probably read, PG&E recently made the decision to retire in an orderly fashion the Diablo Canyon Nuclear Generating Facility in San Luis Obispo County. And we went through a process by which we brought together a broad group of stakeholders that don't always see eye to eye on issues. We brought together labor groups, we brought together environmental activists, we brought together nuclear activists to co-create a joint proposal that would allow for the orderly retirement of Diablo Canyon, but would allow for it in such a way that we were able to replace some of the output with greenhouse gas-free resources. So that's number one, demonstrating our commitment to a transparent, collaborative process. Second, it demonstrates our commitment to helping to advance California's ambitious climate goals, agreeing to replace that output with energy efficiency, renewable energy, greenhouse gas-free resources. And then we've also built into the proposal mechanisms that will help mitigate the financial impacts on our workers that are going to still need to be there, and on the community in which Diablo Canyon has existed for the last 30 years. And so that's one recent example of how we made a deliberate effort to get together in a room the people that had a significant voice or had significant concerns about Diablo Canyon to co-create what we think is a really positive and frankly a model for how good public policy can be implemented when you bring together diverse stakeholders.
Thank you. Well, being in the delivery of energy, it's important that you know who your consumer is and how to serve them. What's the significance of the grid infrastructure?
The grid infrastructure is something else that's undergoing a dynamic change. It used to be that you had central generating stations that delivered power to homes. Now you're seeing a vast deployment of solar distributed generation and other distributed technologies, but the grid itself remains vital and remains critically important. Even as more solar and other distributed technologies are attached to the grid, we would submit that the grid becomes even more valuable and more critical in helping to enable these new technologies. Our position is that the grid will always be needed. As we've heard in the other dialogue earlier, and as you and I have often discussed, not everybody is going to either want or be able to attach private solar installations to the roofs of their homes. And so the public utilities infrastructure that has been critical to serving customers for over 100 years will, I think, always be vital and critical to the delivery of energy.
And so can you say one challenge, because we're closing here, that will impact the low-income communities as it relates to the grid?
So I think the challenge that we see, and as is the discussion that we're having today, is to ensure that the benefits of solar distributed generation and other distributed technologies are widely realized, right? I mean, what we're seeing is all these new technologies, and our role and our job, I think, as public utility and as policymakers and policy implementers, is to ensure that those benefits are broadly distributed. And so some of the barriers are obviously access to the technology because of financial constraints. And so it's really important, and PG&E has been a leader in doing this, in working with grid alternatives and working with Habitat for Humanity, another example of our partnership, to ensure that we are able to deliver those technologies in a cost-effective manner to disadvantaged and low-income communities that might not otherwise be able to take advantage of that. But that's a short-term solution. We also need long-term solutions, and some of that will be policies that are implemented to ensure that all communities are able to take advantage of these new technologies.
Very well, Robert.
We're out of time.
We're out of time.
I thank you again for the
Thank you
opportunity.
for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you.